Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. When you think of the United States and Russia, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most people, it's the Cold War. The decades-long standoff between two superpowers, the clash of ideologies, the space race, the nuclear arms race. It's a story we all know. But what if I told you that the relationship wasn't always so frosty? In fact, before the Cold War, the history between these two giants was a roller coaster of friendship, mistrust, and shifting alliances. So, how did we get from friendly neighbors to bitter rivals? Let's rewind the clock and find out. Before the chaos of the 20th century, the United States and the Russian Empire actually got along quite well. They were distant, sure, but there was a mutual respect. The US saw Russia as a counterweight to British power in Europe, and Russia, well, they were one of the few European powers that didn't meddle in the American Civil War. In fact, they sent their fleet to New York and San Francisco in a show of support for the Union. It was a surprisingly warm relationship, built on shared strategic interests and a healthy distance. But then, everything changed in 1917 with the Russian Revolution. The overthrow of the Tsar and the rise of the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, sent shockwaves across the globe, and Washington was not happy. The United States, a nation built on capitalism and private property, was ideologically horrified by the communist takeover. President Woodrow Wilson even tried to play peacemaker during the brutal Russian Civil War that followed. He proposed a conference for all warring factions. But the Bolsheviks, confident in their eventual victory, flat out rejected the offer. They saw it as foreign interference, and this early attempt at diplomacy only deepened the growing mistrust. The situation got even more complicated when the US decided to send troops to Siberia in 1918. Now, the official reason was to help evacuate a group of Czech soldiers and secure Allied war supplies. But there was another, bigger concern: Japan. The Japanese had also sent a massive force into Siberia, and Washington was worried they were using the chaos of the Russian Civil War as an excuse for a land grab. The American presence was meant to keep an eye on the Japanese. But for the new Soviet government, it just looked like another foreign invasion on their soil. It didn't matter what the American intentions were. The sight of US soldiers in Russia was seen as an act of hostility, poisoning relations for years to come. After the Bolsheviks finally won the Civil War and established the Soviet Union, the two nations entered a period of mutual avoidance. They basically just ignored each other. For the United States, a big part of the problem was financial. The new Soviet government had nationalized all foreign assets, which meant American companies and investors who had put money into Russia lost everything. That's a tough pill to swallow. On the other side, the Soviets viewed American capitalism as the ultimate evil, the very system they were determined to overthrow. With such a fundamental ideological clash and financial grievances, there was simply no common ground. For over a decade, there was no official diplomatic contact. It was as if they existed in two different worlds. This deep freeze started to thaw a little in the 1930s, but not because they suddenly became friends. The world was changing. The Great Depression was ravaging the American economy, and President Franklin D. Roosevelt was looking for any potential new markets for American goods. At the same time, the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin was feeling increasingly threatened by the rise of Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan. They needed allies, or at least fewer enemies. So, in 1933, the US officially recognized the Soviet government. It was a purely practical decision. In exchange for recognition, the Soviets made a few promises. They would guarantee religious freedom for Americans in the US, boost trade, and, most importantly, stop promoting communist revolution inside the United States. It sounded good on paper, but in reality, the Soviets didn't keep any of these promises. The propaganda continued. Trade never really took off, and relations remained cool at best. The real turning point came with the thunder of war. In 1941, Hitler betrayed his pact with Stalin and launched a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. Suddenly, day-old Sujing, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, became very real. The United States, though not yet officially in the war, saw Nazi Germany as the primary threat to global stability. Roosevelt immediately extended the Lend-Lease program to the Soviets, sending a massive flow of weapons, trucks, food, and other vital supplies to help them fight off the German invasion. It was a marriage of convenience. The US needed the Soviets to tie down the bulk of the German army on the Eastern Front, and the Soviets desperately needed American industrial might to survive. This alliance was critical to winning World War II. During the war, the US and the Soviet Union fought on the same side, but the underlying tensions never went away. On the surface, propaganda posters showed smiling American and Soviet soldiers shaking hands. Leaders like Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin met at conferences in Tehran and Yalta to coordinate strategy and plan for the post-war world. But behind the scenes, there was a constant strategic chess match being played. The United States and Britain wanted Germany defeated, of course, but they were also deeply concerned about what would happen after the war. They feared that defeating the Nazis would just leave a vacuum for the Soviet Union to fill, replacing German dominance in Europe with Soviet dominance. They watched with anxiety as the Red Army pushed westward, liberating countries from the Nazis, but also installing communist-friendly governments in their place. And this is where the seeds of the Cold War were truly sown. As soon as the common enemy, Nazi Germany, was defeated in 1945, the fundamental differences between the two powers came roaring back to the surface. The marriage of convenience was over. The disagreements over the future of Germany, Poland, and the rest of Eastern Europe became impossible to ignore. The Soviets were determined to create a buffer zone of satellite states to protect themselves from future invasion, while the US saw this as an aggressive expansion of communism that threatened the free world. The wartime alliance crumbled, and the mistrust that had been brewing for decades finally boiled over. The stage was set for a new kind of conflict, a global ideological struggle that would define the second half of the 20th century. What started as a cautious friendship with the Russian Empire had transformed, through revolution, mistrust, and a world war, into the bitter rivalry of the Cold War. So, the next time you think about the US-Soviet relationship, remember that it's a story with a long and complicated first chapter. The Cold War didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was the culmination of decades of events that shaped how these two nations saw each other and their place in the world. It's a fascinating look at how geopolitics, ideology, and personalities can steer the course of history. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this interesting, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to see covered. See you in the next video.